Hey there, and welcome. It's Christina Johnson here, transformational nutrition coach and founder of the Emerge Weight Loss Program. And today's topic is going to be really helpful for you if you are like many of the women who have done lots of research and have lots of knowledge about what it takes to lose weight. You probably have a pretty good idea of what you should be doing or shouldn't be doing. And yet you're still struggling to fit comfortably in your clothes, or you're still struggling to be consistent and to reach your weight loss goal or your health goals. This is actually a topic that has come up quite a few times just in the last week or two in conversations I've been having with different women, either just one-on-one consults that I do or the members of the Emerge program. And so whenever there's this common theme that keeps coming up, I always like to talk about it publicly with everyone, because if it's something that's going on for a handful of people in the conversations I'm having, I'm guessing there's quite a few of you that can relate. And so, in these conversations I've been having, I keep hearing things like, from women that are saying things like, I have a lot of knowledge. I know about intermittent fasting. I know about, I need to balance my blood sugar. Or I've looked into keto and I've looked into all these different options. They have all this knowledge about what it takes. They're smart. They're successful. They've done the homework and the research. And yet they're still struggling to be consistent or to put it into practice or to actually get results from all of this knowledge that they have. So we just type me in the comments, whether you're watching live or the replay. Will you type me if you can relate to this situation at all? If you could relate to these women that I've been talking with over the past couple of weeks. So what I want to do today is to talk a little bit about and just kind of shed some light on what is the problem with having all this knowledge? Like, why is it that you can have all this knowledge but still not get results? So I want to talk about that first. And then what I really want to talk about is how do you actually start taking action so that you get results? So we're going to shed light on kind of the problem with having all this knowledge and then move into, well, what do we do about it? So let's get started. And there's really 5 key problems that can come up if you are that type of person who's doing all this research and has all this knowledge about weight loss. And the first problem that I see, and this is again what I'm hearing from women, is that they get to the point where there's so much information and it begins to contradict each other. And so maybe you've noticed this. Like you might find, follow advice from one person or one program or one plan. And maybe, for example, one thing says, we got to go low carb and then the weight's just going to fall off. But then you read somewhere else and it tells you, well, if you go too low carb, then it's going to affect your metabolism, your thyroid, your energy. And there's just so many instances where that happens. Maybe one source tells you, well, you got to cut back to 1,200 calories. And then something else tells you, we got to be careful, don't cut your calories too much, or it's not all about calories. And so what happens is you have all this great information, but it doesn't all align with each other. And so then I think what happens is people just feel confused. It's like, well, what actually is right? What should I even follow? Who do I trust? Because there's so much information out there. So let me know, will you type a 1 in the comments if you can relate to that struggle at all, that there's so much information and it begins to contradict itself. The second problem I see is that, and this is what a couple people told me, is that they just, they have all this information, but they're not sure what's actually right for them and for their body. Because the truth is, there is not. If anyone's telling you there's one perfect way to eat that's going to work for everyone, it's just simply not true. There isn't a great specific one-size-fits-all plan that will work for everyone. And so it makes sense. You have all this knowledge, but then you start to wonder, well, okay, now I am postmenopausal. What's actually right for me now? Because what works for someone in their 20s to lose weight tends to be a little bit different than what works best for someone in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Or, maybe based on your gender, what works well for males doesn't always work as easily for females. We have to take a little bit different approach. or maybe just your genetic predispositions, or just your season of life, your level of activity, your level of stress. There's so many factors that affect what's going to be best for you, not to mention lifestyle things. So, for example, I was talking to a couple women that have all these social events or meals that they have with their church, either church or small groups. And so every week there's 1, 2, or 3 meals that are kind of out of their control. So how do you make it work? How do you make it work for you and your lifestyle too? So that's the second issue that I see with knowledge alone. You can have the knowledge, but it may not help you determine exactly what's right for you, for your body, your lifestyle. So put a 2 in the comments if that is applicable to you at all. The third problem, and this kind of stems from 1 and 2, is that you have all this knowledge, but you just haven't fully implemented it. And that's often because you're confused about what's right. You're overwhelmed. And so sure, you might have the information, the steps to follow, but you're not taking action because, it's just a little overwhelming, or maybe you don't know where to start, or what to do first, what's right for you. So that's number 3 is, you have the knowledge, but you're just not putting it into practice for one reason or another. So put a 3 in the comments if you can relate to that. And number 4, and this honestly I think is one of the biggest ones, and that is, you might have the knowledge. You might know, okay, I need to balance my blood sugar, or you might know I want to try intermittent fasting. But if you don't have a really clear, specific step-by-step plan to follow, then it's really tricky to get started. Or what happens is once you decide, okay, this is the approach I want to use, then you have to spend all this time and effort and energy to figure out, okay, how do I actually implement this? Like, what is the process to put this into practice? And for a lot of the women I talk to, they are busy. You have a job, you have kids or grandkids, you have so many responsibilities that taking all this time to piece together all this information, because that's what happens. You have information from all these places and it's so disjointed. And so it's hard to get it to all come together into one practical plan. And I think that is such a huge obstacle for so many people. And so, all this disjointed information, it's really not doing you any good unless it can come together into a plan. So let me know, put a 4 in the comments if that is a problem that you can identify with. And then the 5th one is that not having someone to answer your questions. So again, you might have the knowledge, maybe you even have, a plan more or less, but then as you start implementing it, there are bound to be questions that come up. And if you don't have someone to reach out to, if you don't have someone to ask, okay, what do I do if this happens or if that happens, then you just kind of stay stuck. You spin your wheels and you lose time on implementing because you're just not sure what to do. And just for an example, let's say that you did want to try intermittent fasting. So you decide that you're going to follow that plan, but then you have all these questions like, okay, well, what's the best time to start eating for the day? What's the best time to stop eating? What do I eat when I do eat in my eating window? There's all those little things. Or another example, I have so many people tell me that, especially who are, in the pre-diabetic or diabetic range, their doctors tell them, eat more protein. So it's okay, great. Well, you can try to eat more protein, but for a lot of people that brings up questions. How much protein am I eating now? How much protein should I be aiming for? How do I add in more protein? I feel like I'm already eating a lot. And so it's all those little questions, the nuances, that if you have someone to be able to ask that question to and get a quick answer, it makes all the difference to be able to keep taking action. So let me know, put a 5 in the comments if you can relate to that, if you feel like you've ever been stuck because, you just have these questions and don't have someone to answer them for you. Okay, so really the core, the crux of the issue here with all these problems that I just listed is that you can have the knowledge, but the knowledge alone, if you are just learning and researching, you're staying in learning mode. and we need to transition out of learning mode into action mode, because that's where the results happen. We don't get results by learning, and sometimes it feels good. You know, we get a little boost. We feel better because, oh, we learned this new way to lose weight. But you're not going to get results until you move to action mode. So let's talk about what are some of the key elements that are really important to getting into and staying in action mode. And I will say, you know, I've been coaching for 7-8 years now, and this is what I'm seeing works. Like in practice, this is what I'm seeing helps people get into action and stay in action long enough to get results. So element one that you really need to have is a very clear step-by-step plan or process to follow. And so yes, you do want a little piece of the education so that you know what you're doing and why it's important, because I think that's good for motivation. But then alongside that little piece of knowledge, you need practical action steps. It has to be paired together. So it doesn't work if you have, okay, here's 15 things to do, like 15 ways to balance your blood sugar. What I have found to be most effective is to say, okay, here's one thing to focus on now. Here's the action item that complements it. Go do that. And then next week, we're going to focus on the second part. And here's the action item to focus on this week. That process I have just found to be so helpful for people, because it cuts down the overwhelm. It cuts down, if you feel like you don't have much time, or, all these questions can come up. It just reduces all that, because you're only focusing on 1 or 2 key action steps at a time, and you're actually putting it into practice right away before learning the next step. So I think that is really the first key piece of moving into action mode, is having a clear step-by-step plan to follow. That's done over time, I should say. Not that you have to follow in 1 week, but that's spread out over time so you have time to work through it. Okay, the second key piece to being in action mode is that once you have like this general recommendations, there really needs to be the ability to personalize it for you, for your body, and for your lifestyle. So it's great to have this, step-by-step process to follow, but then, nothing is one size fits all. Just a quick example of this. I work with women a lot who, as we all kind of are told, believe that oatmeal is this great healthy option for breakfast. And yes, it works well for some people, but then other people eat oatmeal for breakfast, and what they find is that it's spiking their blood sugar. They end up having more cravings later in the day. They get energy crashes later in the day. They don't feel as full, and it might mess with their weight loss results. And so there's things like that you can follow this plan, but then there also has to be the option to personalize, to experiment with, okay, what's going to work best for your body and your lifestyle. Number 3 then is to have someone that you can ask questions to. So like I mentioned before, there's so many little questions that come up. I'm just thinking about in the Emerge group that we have, the questions that come up. There is, things like, well, what's the best salad dressing to buy? Where can I find a healthy mayonnaise option? There's questions like, how do I handle going out to eat? How do I handle these, being at friends' houses or being at church events? Like, what do I do? There's all those things that come up, the situations, the questions, as you're implementing a clean, healthy lifestyle. And so having someone that you can ask and get answers from quickly, I think just makes all the difference, because then you keep moving forward. You don't stay stuck because you don't know, but you get your answer and then you move on. And I think that really helps people stay in momentum, to stay in action. And then the final piece that I think helps you stay, this is important for staying in action mode, is having a community of people around you who are doing the same thing as you. Because, I hear often from people that, their family, their friends maybe get a little tired of them, sharing what they're learning about and the changes that they're making. But when you have a group of people that gets it, that gets that it's a big win to get your water in every day for a week and will cheer you on, or who gets how hard it is when you're at an event and there's not one healthy option available, like having that community, having the opportunity to get ideas from other people, to hear what's working for them, what's not working, that is so motivating and encouraging and will allow you to keep sticking with it, even when you're having a hard week. And I know not everybody's like a group person, but there really is something powerful about being part of a group and having just that support and that accountability to the group as well. So that's what I found is really most important for getting you into action and staying in action. So here is my challenge to you, because hopefully you can see this about me if you've been following me for a while, but I have the heart of a teacher and a coach. And my goal, whether I'm working with you in, as a member of the Emerge program as one of my clients, or just, teaching you here in these free resources, my goal is to always give you some information, but to help you take action, even if it's just one simple action step you can take. And so I don't want this video to be another piece of information you consume and don't take action on. So here is my suggested action item or homework item. And that is to take even just 30 seconds or a minute to do a little self-reflection and ask yourself, what is it that's been missing for you? What do you need in order to move into action mode? And that could be likely one of those 4 elements that I just shared. And so I'll recap them for you quickly. But my great challenge to you is to let us know in the comments for that, to have that, accountability, and to just, raise your level of commitment a little bit by putting it in writing here in this Facebook group. So the 4 elements of a person who is getting into action and staying action are: 1, having a step-by-step plan to follow, one piece at a time, 1 week at a time. 2 is having a foundation of recommendations, but then the ability to figure out how to personalize it for you and your body. Number 3 is having someone who can answer all the questions that come up for you. And 4 is having community. So let me know in the comments what you feel like would be most helpful for you to get into action and to stay into action. And my last, caution or just, thoughts for you is that if this is resonating with you, if you're like, this is me, I do spend a lot of time learning and haven't gotten into action mode or don't stay in action mode, then I would caution you to be careful that sometimes, now you might know, I need to find a plan to follow. I need to have some accountability. I need some community. And so then you can get into learning mode to get into action mode. And so you might spend days, weeks, months figuring out, what is the best plan to follow? And so just be careful of that. Just be aware that that is another tendency that can happen. And also know that this is why I created the Emerge Weight Loss Program, because I wanted it to include all of these pieces to not just teach you what it takes to lose weight, not to just give you the tools, but to help you implement them so that you actually get results. And so if you are just feeling like, I am ready to jump in, I am ready to take action, I don't want to keep wasting time learning, then I would recommend as your next step that you book a complimentary consultation with me so that we can talk more about what you're struggling with, what your goals are, and then I'll be able to give you an even better, more personalized recommendation on what next steps might be best for you and to figure out if the Emerge program could work for you. So, this is a no pressure call. It really is my way of just being able to help you take one more step forward, whether you end up working with me or not. So I will put a link in the comments so you can book one of those calls with me. And then please let me know what your action step is in the comments so that I can be here to cheer you on. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask them in the comments, and I will talk to you again very soon. Bye.